The city of Montreal is Canada's oldest big city and was founded in 1642 by the French. Since the 1800s, as it has grown into a large metropolis, Montreal has also become a hotbed of sports activity.
Sports have played a major role in the city's history. Home to the Formula One Canadian Grand Prix since 1978, the city hosted the Summer Olympic Games of 1976. Montreal is home to the oldest rugby club, golf club, curling club, and active sports club in North America, and is also home to both the world's oldest lacrosse team and hockey team. Montreal's famous McGill University is partly responsible for this, and the school has played a vital role in the invention of 3 of the biggest sports in North America.
Thank you, Canada, for giving us hockey, basketball, and thank you for football.
What? No way.
Yeah, look it up.
On the air live from the cradle of organized sport, Montreal, Quebec.
I've always said Montreal is the cradle of organized sport.
Laurent Duvernay-Tardif sold the talk around Montreal because he's playing in the Super Bowl for the KC Chiefs, and you just saw Kim St. Pierre is from McGill, so I want to say to McGill, this is the cradle of organized sport. James Creighton created the rules for the game in 1875 that begat hockey. We can thank Mr. Naismith for basketball, and he was a McGill grad. And finally, the first ever football game, I don't know if you realize, but in 1874, it was McGill versus Harvard down in Cambridge. First ever football game, so that's basketball, hockey, and football all owing itself to this part of the world.
Sweetie, you could still go to McGill, the Harvard of Canada.
Hey, we're going to watch Super Bowl 13 later. Want to pull up a chair?
Oh, thanks, but you know, I prefer the fast-paced Canadian 3-down system. I mean, American football is a real snoozer, huh?
Touchdown! The Montreal Alouettes had to beat the best regular season team in the East. They did. They had to beat the best of the West. They did. And now they are flying above the league for the first time in 13 years. The Owls are the 2023 Grey Cup champions.
Here's the touch. Here's the touch. It's got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter. Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
Through the center zone for Montreal. Dano sneaks in, the pass across. They score! For the first time in 28 years, the Montreal Canadiens are on their way to the Stanley Cup final.
Here comes Montreal over the line. In front they go. They score! To the finals they go! Montreal scores!
Gallagher. Dano! Oh, I love you! Les Montreal Canadiens, they do it! I can't believe it! Et les Canadiens s'en vont en finale de la Coupe Stanley. SD des Tabarnak. Hound fans, you gotta be crying. The province of Quebec is on fire tonight. Let's go!
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
So everybody knows that the Montreal Canadiens have won 24 Stanley Cups, and if you didn't know that, well, chances are some drunk Habs fan has bothered you about it in a bar somewhere.
What team has won the most Stanley Cup championships?
Montreal Canadiens. Swish, baby. This game is too easy.
They've had a glorious history, and they've won 24 Stanley Cups. In Lord of the Rings, you know, I wore the old beat-up white classic Montreal Canadiens t-shirt. I would wear that under the Aragorn clothes. It gave me just a little more power with the sword, I think.
For the 4th consecutive time.
The Canadians are great at parades. I mean, you know, you get good when you do it all the time.
So the second winningest franchise in sports history. I think only the Yankees beat us.
Oh my God, you don't understand! You don't understand! My dad would never believe this! Holy shit!
It is a city where one game, one team, one set of heroes stand apart from all others. Because for generations of us in Montreal, hockey hasn't been just a sport. It's been a way of life. The Canadiens haven't just been a franchise, but a symbol of what excellence can look like. And names like Rocket Richard, Jean Beliveau, Guy Lafleur, haven't just been stars, but icons forever ingrained in history. Yet there was once a time when there were others, names people knew. The Grand Orange, the Kid, the Hawk, the Rock, and Pedro. Men who didn't wield sticks and pucks, but bats and balls. Members of another team that captured the heart of the city in unforgettable ways.
Has pitched a no-hit, no-run ball game.
El Presidente, El Perfecto.
The Expos are still alive in Montreal. You just have to look a little harder to find them.
The Canadiens were les glorieux, the glorious. The Expos were Nos Amours, our loves.
I love Montreal, my God, and call me an eternal optimist, but I really believe in my heart that this is the year that the Expos are finally going to win it all.
The Montreal Expos are just Canada's second best baseball team. Well, used to be.
The Expos moved?
It's been nearly 20 years already. Memories abound.
2024 is the 20th anniversary of the Expos' last season in Montreal.
Life goes on when you lose a brother or a best friend. That's how I've often spoken about the Montreal Expos. I lost somebody that I loved.
I still look for the teams listing in the standings in the National League East, and I haven't seen them for quite a while.
Everyone still remembers the Expos fondly, was very much a part of Montreal, and when people ask me what team I'm a fan of, I always say the Expos. Even though they don't exist anymore, I still tell my kids I'm an Expos fan.
That colorful, truly unique team, the players, the memories, are still alive.
It's going to be up and away. A home run for Ellis Valentine. The Expos advance to the championship series.
Holy cow, what an emotional moment here in Montreal.
If you go through the Expos history, as of 1969 till the end, I challenge any organization to have developed so many outstanding players.
They were special. They were good. And I hope people recall that.
Here's the stone-cold truth about the Montreal Expos. They came to fruition in 1897 as the Montreal Royals. What followed next was 7 decades worth of a rich baseball tradition.
Baseball in Montreal has a rich history dating all the way back to the late 1800s.
The Royals were a Montreal institution for 62 seasons, the last 16 the Dodgers AAA affiliate, and the stepping stone for some iconic baseball legends.
The Royals became highly successful under the Dodgers management, winning 7 International League championships and 3 Junior World Series. However, the Royals arguably became most famous for developing talented young prospects.
A host of legends would pass through that Royals clubhouse over the years, but none more significant than a 27-year-old Jackie Robinson, who spent the 1946 season with the team.
What a statement to say he'd never had a happier year than his year in Montreal.
He even told me that the best year of his life was his year here. Because Montreal, he never saw intolerance. He never had a bad day in Montreal.
Montreal for us, it was fabulous.
The love that we took from Montreal really sustained us. And so coming home to Montreal, to me, is coming back to really the birthplace of my belief in brotherhood. I really believe it can happen.
The Lormier Downs in the east end of Montreal, Jackie Robinson burst onto the professional baseball scene with the Montreal Royals of the International League. And it was here, in 1960, that the Montreal Royals played their final season, ending 32 years of baseball at the Downs and leaving Montrealers without professional baseball for the next 8 years.
In 1960, the Royals folded, which actually might have been the best thing for baseball in Montreal, because Major League Baseball was expanding.
For Montreal, they had had the experience of being in AAA. Now they wouldn't settle for that anymore. They're too big, and Montreal was suddenly a major league town.
The decade of the 60s was one of economic growth of the city of Montreal. Long famous for its nightlife and joie de vivre, Montreal was earning its status as a major league center of business and finance. It had gained stature as a world-class metropolis, and Expo 67 was the jewel in the crown.
We had a mayor, Mr. Drapo. He wanted to be able to have a stadium so he could bring in the Olympics to Montreal. And baseball was a way to do it.
Montreal's a huge, huge underdog. And against all odds, Montreal gets picked.
In 1969, the Montreal Expos came as a part of the only 4-team expansion in MLB history. As the first Canadian team in Major League Baseball for close to a decade, they had basically an entire country in their corner.
When the Expos came, you had this incredible love affair.
It was magic time in Canada. Montreal was granted a big league franchise in 1969. How would baseball translate into another language? And which anthem would come first, O Canada or the Star-Spangled Banner? Proud Montrealers didn't much care. They just loved having a piece of the action.
There's only a few months left until the 1969 season is going to start, but they don't have anywhere to play. There's no stadium. Where are they going to play their games?
We were having a wake in our office for the team that wouldn't be. And there was a phone call from the mayor. I went down to his office, and there was a picture of Jarry Park.
A municipal park called Jarry Park. And Drapeau says, we're going to turn this into a Major League Baseball stadium.
But sights were set on a construction miracle, a miracle that would see a junior league ballpark transformed into a major league facility before April 14th, 1969.
Night and day, the city and the club labored to do the impossible, to put into operation what has been called the most fantastic sports enterprise in Canadian history.
With the Jarry Park plan in place, the team began the process of choosing a team nickname. Initially, they preferred the name the Royals as an homage to the minor league club that played in Montreal for so many years. But that name had already been taken by the Kansas City Royals. Montreal then considered a number of different names, including the Voyagers and the Nationals, which is
a huge steaming ball of foreshadowing.
But they settled on the name Expos, named after the World's Fair exposition that had taken place just a couple of years earlier in Montreal in 1967.
I remember sitting at our kitchen table listening to a call-in show what our new team's name would be. Someone called in and said, well, we just had Expo 67. Why don't we name it the Expos? And it stuck.
We will all be proud of our Montreal Expos.
The Expos chose a unique logo to represent the team. The overall shape is shaped like an M for the city of Montreal, with a red swirl shape on the left that creates a lowercase e shape for the Expos. Then on the right side of the logo, there's a lowercase b shape in blue that stands for baseball. The logo is also italicized to represent forward movement, and while it was initially mocked for being too modern looking, it eventually gained admiration as an iconic and classic logo.
A week into the season, the Expos returned home for the first time and were greeted like World Series champions. Fans lined up as last-minute preparations were still going on inside the refurbished Jarry Park. Finally, it arrived. Opening day for Major League Baseball in Canada.
The home opener at Jarry Park was historic, for it was the first Major League game to be played on international soil.
Crowd beginning to stand.
That's really something, a standing ovation before the first ball is pitched out.
Fans went insane. You couldn't get another person in the ballpark. They had people that were standing on ladders outside the ballpark trying to look over the fences.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem.
The tears are just rolling down my cheeks, and frankly, I was standing next to Mayor Drapo, the tears are rolling down his cheeks too.
Play ball!
The day after, in one of the French papers, the editor wrote, Les Expos Nos Amours. And that always stayed. They were our lovers, they always stayed. And in the Gazette, Le Grand Orange, Rusty Staub, his name was there. In one day, people loved us, and we had a superhero in Rusty Staub. Opening day.
The Houston Astros saw enough value in the Expos draft to give up a young, red-headed outfielder from Louisiana who would soon become a legend in Canada.
He was big in Montreal as Wayne Gretzky is in Edmonton.
He was the Le Grand Orange, the first French words I learned.
Right from the very start, the fans took to Rusty Staub, and the baseball writer Ted Blackman dubbed him Le Grand Orange.
See that hair? That's why they call him Le Grand Orange.
Lucky God.
They called him Le Grand Orange, an original Expo who endeared himself to the fans not just by making 3 all-star teams, but by learning French. Rusty Staub was the star the expansion Expos needed to connect with their city.
The reason why I learned French was I felt kind of stupid not to be able to talk to a child.
Je veux communiquer avec le public.
And to be able to do those things, it took on a whole new air with the people in Canada.
I really can't tell you enough about the way the fans here have made most of the players here feel.
These people here, they crazy about baseball, and they come to see us every day there, even if we lose every day. They don't care if we're going bad.
It was fun. The theme was fun, because if you build on winning, you could have problems. But if you build on having fun, we had no problem.
We've got a dandy coming up for you here tonight, here at Jarry Park.
There were aspects of Jarry Park that visiting players and even the Expos themselves had never seen before.
They had so many idiosyncrasies at the ballpark.
We had a dancer. We had a dancer at Jarry Park.
This guy ran up and down the seats, and everybody cheered. If he wasn't there, I don't know if they'd have continued the game.
The things at Jarry Park that I was totally unprepared for. A man bringing a duck to the ball game.
The duck.
Just over here, a guy had a seat for a goose, a box seat for a goose. You just never knew what to expect here.
The incessant cheerleading of the organists, the beautiful girls parading the aisle.
Nothing would be happening in the game, and there would be this roar and this tremendous ovation, and it took you a while to realize that some beautiful girl was walking down the aisle and everybody was cheering for her.
Home runs into snowdrifts piled behind the right field fence. Homers over the scoreboard into the pool.
One of the great parts of the folklore of Park Jarry was the home runs hit in this swimming pool. Willie Stargell, myself luckily a few times. They used to actually have somebody here watching for the big home run hitters. The lifeguard would blow a whistle, everybody would get out of the pool for a while and wait for this guy to finish, then they'd go back to swimming. It really is one of the great parts of what the history of Park Jarry really was.
Sort of like a carnival atmosphere. The fans are right on top of you.
Let's go, Dad, baby! All the way down!
I just can't make people understand how Park Jarry was, because you can't unless you were there, unless you saw the intimacy of it, camaraderie that the people had in that ballpark. It was an outing. It wasn't just a ball game.
Realistically, you got to say we're going to finish last in our division. If anybody looks at it any other way, they're just kidding somebody.
The Expos lost a lot of games those first few seasons, but fans had been ready for that. What they weren't expecting was the 1972 trade of their beloved superstar.
That's the only time in my career I was ever caught unaware. I was stunned. I was.
I actually sat in my apartment and I cried. It's one of the few times in my life it really got to me.
People couldn't really wrap their arms around it. They felt, well, we lost one of our own. And as things go on, this kind of escalates. If you had to look ahead and said what was going to happen in the history of the franchise, that was it. It was always going to be like that, and it was always going to be in peril as a result.
When free agency came about, we had the first pick, and we picked Reggie Jackson. And then the Yankees started bidding for him, and San Diego did. Reggie eventually signed with New York, and I remember George Steinbrenner said, Brofman might have Seagram's, Ray Kroc might have McDonald's, but I got the Big Apple. So I said, there's only one way we're going to be able to do this, and that's to grow our own talent.
Charles did what he had to do to survive, and that was he put a lot of resources into the scouting staff. He put a lot of resources into the minor league system, and he said, fellas, I want you to go out and build the best organization in baseball.
In the 1970s, the Expos player development system was the envy of baseball.
I got to give their scouting department and their development department a lot of credit because, they were signing some monster players.
Steve Rogers joined the team in '73, followed by Larry Parrish and Gary Carter 1 year later. In 1975, it was Ellis Valentine, and Andre Dawson came on board in '76.
In the franchise's minor league system, stars were beginning to develop. And there were none brighter than the guy they called the Kid.
It was always, hey, wait till Carter gets here, wait till Carter gets here. And when he got here, he didn't disappoint anybody.
A home run for Gary Carter.
Carter, in every respect, starts flourishing. He's a terrific hitter and just becomes such a great defensive catcher.
He was the enthusiastic kid, and people saw that love of the game and love for the city.
Bonjour, mesdames, messieurs.
He just jumped right in, and he was never shy to practice French, even if he wasn't pronouncing it perfect. It really gave the people there in Montreal, I think, just an extra love for him.
Mon nom est Gary Carter, le receiver des Expos.
Gary Carter was the face of the Expos. He was the Expos.
Carter was the new face of a franchise about to embark on a new era in a new home, Olympic Stadium.
From Montreal,
The Games of the 21st Olympiad, an exclusive presentation of ABC Sports. Today it all begins from the great new Olympic Stadium.
It was 1976, and the Summer Olympics was the story in Montreal sports that year. The final game arrived on a cold and rainy day as the Phillies beat the Expos 2-1 to sweep a doubleheader. And baseball at Jarry Park became a memory.
I was here with my father back in the first game in 1969, and just for posterity's sake, really, I wanted to be here for the last game here in 1976.
They've tried their best, they really have. We've had a lot of hard luck, but let's hope at the Olympic Stadium it'll be much better.
Olympic Stadium was built for the Olympics. It really wasn't a baseball facility.
I remember walking in just before the Olympics, and I almost had a heart attack when I saw it, because this was going to be a failure.
Olympic Stadium to Quebecers was a bit of a thorn in the thigh because of the costs.
The stadium eventually cost $1 billion.
This was the billion-dollar boondoggle. It wasn't designed for baseball.
The fans never liked it. It's just that simple.
It was a terrible place to watch a baseball game. It was cold, it was hollow, it was nothing more than the world's largest ashtray.
Some people said it looked like a big spaceship had landed. Some other people weren't as kind and said it looked more like a toilet.
The Big O. It was a dump. It was a concrete elephant. It was nothing to be proud of, but it was ours.
In 1977, the Expos moved to the spacious Olympic Stadium and played before a record crowd of 57,000 in their first game against the Phillies. Opening day at Olympic Stadium was an awe-inspiring and intimidating sight for an 8-year-old franchise that had never previously seen more than 31,000 fans for any home game in its history.
And suddenly, Expos baseball was instantly transformed into the most exciting, thrilling party in town.
Olympic Stadium became the place to be.
I'd never sat so high up in anything in my life.
It was huge, it was immense, it was enormous, and it felt great. It felt really major league.
Montreal was now in the big leagues and the expectation level was raised considerably.
A unique new stadium was now embraced by a unique cast of characters who connected with Montreal in unpredictable ways.
As soon as you actually entered the actual stadium, they had Oompa bands. They had these German Oktoberfest kind of bands that were playing in the lobby.
I mean, really, who has Oompa bands? And people loved it.
They used to play a song called The Happy Wanderer. The chorus is basically Valderie, Valdera. That became the rally cry for the team.
Valderie, Valdera, Valderie,
30,000 Canadians singing that in unison.
And then you had the scoreboard. It was pixelated, it was strange, and it had these weird messages.
If the opposing pitcher threw at first base, we had a chicken, come on.
And not some sort of beautiful chicken. It would be basically a cardboard cutout of a chicken into electronic form.
My phone ringer is the chicken sound.
You were going to a game in that era, especially from another city. If you just zapped in from out of town, you just sort of looked around, what is this? It was all completely foreign, right down to the player announcements being in both languages. This was unique to Montreal.
It was crazy, man. 2 languages. They started to know us a little bit, waiting for us at the subway station. And for me, 79 is really when they really realized what they had.
No one ever wanted to leave the party at Olympic Stadium. And it was about to get even bigger.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Montreal Expos. To the ball.
The young seeds the Expos talent scouts had planted were about to blossom. Men like Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, Larry Parrish, Ellis Valentine, Warren Cromartie, Steve Rogers, Bill Gullickson, and Scott Sanderson comprised a core that was eager to win.
By 1979, we had become a contending team.
And behind this homegrown talent, they captivated the city of Montreal with a 95-65 record. Their first ever winning season brought them a second-place finish, but a first for the franchise.
We drew 2,100,000 people. The whole nation of Canada was turned on by the Expos.
79 also marked the arrival of Youppi. With the stadium capacity gone from 28,000 at Jarry Park to over 58,000 at Olympic Stadium, the Expos' new mascot appealed to the young fans and the young at heart, uniting one and all in cheering for their major league team.
He had a personality that endeared himself to children and adults.
He's cute for his age.
He's so cute. I love him.
I think he's adorable.
He's the one that gets all the fans up and everything.
He gives the fans momentum.
Youppi! Exclamation point.
What is Youppi? What is it? Is it a bear? What is it?
Youppi is a mascot for the ages.
They want Youppi off the Dodger dugout. He's bugging the Dodger players, calling somebody from security over.
They're going to call security and remove him from the ballpark.
The most legendary beef in all of baseball is between a manager and a mascot.
Hey, tell them son of a is up there. If I go one more time and this thing don't work, I'm going to grab their asses. I'm tired of this shit.
Meet Tommy Lasorda, baseball's sweetheart. When he wasn't cussing out cameramen for no reason, he was the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. But most of all, he's known for showing no mercy to any mascot that stepped foot onto the diamond.
Make fun of me.
Meet Youppi. The day is August 23rd, 1989. A game between Lasorda's Dodgers and Youppi's Expos. This game will last 22 innings, which translates to 6 hours and 14 minutes of airtime. If you're a Dodgers fan, you can watch the first inning at home, fly from LA to Montreal, and still have time to catch the winning run at the end of the game. But there is one thing you would have missed.
Bob Davidson is throwing Youppi out of the ballgame.
The first ever mascot ejection in all of sports history.
So Youppi is up on the dugout, just stomping around. Lasorda's inside the dugout. He pops out to just glare at Youppi, and everyone loves it. Youppi recognizes that, oh cool, this is working. People are laughing. This guy's getting upset.
Hey, you kill that guy and get off that dugout!
The climactic point in their relationship came in the 10th inning. Still scoreless. After Lasorda had already gotten Youppi to leave the top of the dugout, Youppi had a little wardrobe change. And he put on an oversized nightshirt and one of those just droopy nightcaps.
I love this dude.
Brought a pillow out and went to sleep on top of the Dodgers dugout.
After 9 innings, I put on the PJ on to tell the people it's late.
10th inning, scoreless, perfect goof.
In typical Youppi fashion, he dramatically flopped onto the Dodgers bench, laid his head on his pillow, and took a cartoonish nap.
And what you can hear there is bam, 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 and it's got to be Youppi.
Time is called. They want Youppi off the Dodger dugout. He's bugging the Dodger players, and Tom Lasorda is out. And third base umpire Bob Davidson is throwing Youppi out of the ballgame. He wants him off the Dodger dugout. Tommy Lasorda has put up a complaint. This will draw the ire of the fans.
They threw Youppi out of the game?
They threw Youppi out of the game and then get the saddest walk of a dejected...
Okay, so that's a gif I've seen of the ump tossing him, and then he kind of slides off of the dugout.
Is it real? Is I'm out of the game? They say, yeah, you're out of the game.
This is a first. We've seen it all now, huh?
As you can see, he took the news well. Youppi decided to take a play from Lasorda's book and threw his cap and pillow onto the field.
Youppi has thrown his pillow. He had a nightgown on. He's thrown his pillow. He's thrown his nightcap. And Youppi's been thrown out of the ball. This is a first. Youppi's been thrown out of the ball game.
Only in Montreal.
Well, Bob Davidson is really hearing it.
My career, which was 30 years in the major leagues, I had 166 ejections of ball players and managers and one mascot.
Youppi went on to serve the Expos for a few more years before moving on to becoming the mascot for the Montreal Canadiens. He was inducted into the Mascot Hall of Fame in 2020. No word on if the two ever made up.
There are exactly 3 mascots that have displays in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Youppi, the Philly Fanatic, and the famous chicken from San Diego. Tommy Lasorda has gotten in fights with all of them.
Meanwhile, back at Olympic Stadium, the party is in full swing. A confident throng approaches every game like a victory celebration in early anticipation of an Expos baseball Oktoberfest.
The Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in 1979, the last of 4 in a row. And after that, this great dynasty started splintering. So there was room for a baseball team to capture the hearts of the city.
Is up, and away! A home run for Carter!
Montreal Expos in the early 80s were more popular than Montreal Canadiens. That's a fact. That's not pie in the sky thinking from hardcore baseball fans. They were giving away 2,000 tickets a game to fill the seats at the Montreal Forum, while the Expos were setting franchise attendance records.
Look out! He's got it! Charlie Lee has pitched a no-hit, no-run ball game!
The Montreal Expos were fourth in attendance in the National League in 1979, fourth in 1980, third in 1981 and 82, and second in 1983, fourth in all of baseball that year. In those 5 seasons, the Expos drew about 4,400,000 more total fans than the Chicago Cubs did at Wrigley Field.
People were going to games, they were flocking to games. It was a place to be. Celebrities like Donald Sutherland and the Prime Minister, these were regulars at Montreal Expo games.
This is one of the biggest of all Expos fans, Donald Sutherland. This is not the kind of celebrity who shows up at a World Series game and makes sure he gets a seat by the TV camera. This is a legitimate fan. I was in St. Louis once. Expos playing a key series with the Cardinals. Sutherland flew into town for the whole series, had no business there, just wanted to see the ball games.
2 years ago, he was on location in Europe, and during the playoffs, he got a phone line hooked up to listen to the entire ball game. It cost him $7,000. Is that a fan?
I hope the Expos won.
We always come close, but we couldn't cross the bridge. One time we were real close in 81. I mean, the city was electric. Montreal was on fire.
Thanks to a strike in 1981, the Expos qualified for the playoffs based on a revolutionary new concept that wouldn't come back for almost 15 years, called the Division Series.
It's over. The Expos advance to the championship series.
There was a couple of fans holding the Canadian flag, and I went over there and I got the flag and I held the flag up. You know, it's Canada's turn. We're Canada.
And for the first time, a Canadian team will be in the fight for the National League pennant.
They won the NLDS against the Phillies and matched up against the Dodgers in the next round. And they were so close to reaching their first ever World Series.
The Expos and Dodgers split the first 4 games, setting up a deciding 5th game to be played on a Monday in Montreal.
The first memory that I have ever was Blue Monday. Unfortunately, it was October 19th, 1981, 7 years old.
And finally tonight, the Montreal Expos are still just 1 win away from a spot in their first World Series.
The game went to the 9th inning, tied 1-1. But then came a series of events that would forever define October 19th, 1981 as Blue Monday. With their closer hurt, the Expos sent their ace, Steve Rogers, to warm up in the bullpen.
Steve Rogers is into the game, and with this unusual position to see Steve in out of the bullpen.
With 2 down in the 9th, Rick Monday stepped up to the plate.
I did not hit well against Steve Rogers in my career. 167 is what I hit against him.
Here's the 3-1 pitch, and it's swung on, fly ball, center field.
I saw the swing. I knew he made, a good connection with it, and I actually felt I had a beat on it.
Dawson going back.
I saw Andre going back.
Dawson drifts back, and he keeps carrying.
Dawson at the wall.
I got to the wall, and then saw him run out of room.
And it's gone.
That ball is a home run.
Oh, my God.
To see the ball disappear with Dawson moving back was just an absolute kick to the gut.
And all of a sudden, you could hear a pin drop.
We could hear the silence. When can you hear silence?
2-1 as Rogers taken deep by Rick Monday. It's his day of the week.
The saddest day in the history of sports in Montreal. The saddest day.
Lord's will, we weren't meant to win, I guess.
I just couldn't believe that it was all over for us. We had worked so hard, and we had gotten so far, and now the season was at an end, and we were going to have to watch the World Series on TV.
I remember sitting in the airport after that thinking maybe I was having a heart attack. 1 game away from the World Series. 1 game away.
You get so few chances, and if you grab that ring, boy, when you get the opportunity, you better not slough it. You better grab it.
Blue Monday will never be forgotten in Montreal, for despite winning more games than any National League team from 1979 through 82, this would be the closest the Expos would ever come to a World Series.
You look at it over a 3-year period, 79, 80, and 81, there was no other better team in baseball. Combined record, none. The Dodgers, the Phillies, the Pirates, who had all won the World Championship that year, couldn't match us for a 3-year period.
It was just unfortunate that we never materialized the overall talent that we had to win a World Series. Then eventually the team started to break up.
Following that loss, the Expos, a team with better attendance than the Yankees in the early 80s, would face hard times.
In an effort to keep the payroll under control, Montreal bid adieu to many of its core players over the next 5 years. Parrish, Cromartie, Carter, Gullickson, and Dawson all became Expos. These were business decisions, but much like when Rusty Staub was traded, Montreal fans had to once again endure the loss of their heroes.
That just took the wind out of everyone's sails, because you could look around the major leagues and see an all-star team made up of ex-Expo players.
It was the end of an era that fans would always remember fondly, a memory embodied on a September afternoon in 1992, long after his prime. The kid who had signed with the Expos for that season came to the plate for what would be his final at-bat in the majors.
It was the last day of the last homestand there, and he, you know, both his knees were shot, shoulder, I mean, he was hurting top to bottom.
We were kidding around before the game, and I said, I know that you're probably hobbling a little bit. I'm going to cheat in and I'm going to throw you out. Don't hit the ball to me in right field, because I'm not going to give you a hit. I'm not going to let you get a hit.
You just want to end on a high note if you possibly can.
Enjoy it all, pal. You've earned it.
He came up and I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm going to play in just to see if I can get him to look out here. And he nodded, he tipped his cap, and I cheated in. And what does he do? He hits the ball in the gap in right center. Now I gotta take off, because it's over my head.
There's a drive in the deep right field, way back, way left. A base hit. Here comes a runner on third. And Carter, with a count of 0-2, has put the Expos into the lead. Look at.
And I looked back, and I just shook my head. I said, I tried you and you rose to the occasion.
Holy cow, what an emotional moment here in Montreal. Listen to these people.
It was the storybook ending.
Maybe this will be a Hollywood ending for Gary Carter. And Carter going to take a break.
Here it comes out again.
When you talk about the 1994 season, the first major move of that offseason was they traded Delino DeShields for a young pitcher, weighed 146 pounds, named Pedro Martinez.
Here we go. He strikes out the side.
I didn't know Montreal was so cold during the winter. So I showed up in a little short sleeve shirt. At the time of the trade, when I was to go to the press conference, thank God they had a great jacket for me, an Expos jacket. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of doing anything in baseball.
When you look back at '94, the team was destined. I mean, it just felt like we was gonna win that thing.
They had the best outfield in baseball. Larry Walker, Marquise Grissom, Moises Alou.
Moises Alou, left field. Marquise Grissom, center field.
Larry Walker, right field. I was a member of the 1997 World Champion Florida Marlins, and our '94 team was better.
The unity that we had in that team was also impressive. My God, could we do everything together?
There's a lot to cheer if you're a Montreal Expo fan tonight.
In 1994, no ball club was hotter than the Montreal Expos.
The Expos would field what many considered to be the greatest Montreal team of all time.
There was like a full spread in USA Today about this team. They were like saying, hey, take notice of these kids going off up north.
The Expos went off in June, going 19-8 for the month to break away from the pretenders in the National League and keep pace with the comparably red-hot Braves.
The turning point of that season was Cliff Floyd hitting a home run against God. Maddox.
And the 2-2. Fly ball deep right field.
Elle est loin à la droite. Bonsoir! Elle est partie. Floyd.
Three-run homer for Cliff Floyd.
I know afterwards, the clubbies came over and was like, Greg Maddux absolutely destroyed the locker room that night.
Everything was clicking, and it wasn't long before the Expos overtook Atlanta atop the division standings. After dropping 4 straight to kick off the second half, the Expos were virtually unbeatable, winning 14 of their next 15 contests to leave the Braves and the rest of the league in their dust.
They would go on to absolutely steamroll the National League during the summer of '94. They went 46-18 from June 1st to August 11th. Keep that second date in the back of your mind.
By late July, the Expos had the best record in all of baseball, and they were downright electrifying.
What a story. The best team in baseball resides in Montreal. The Expos, they're on a pace to win 110 games.
110 games. Look at the company they're in for best teams of all time. Safe to say they were well on their way to a historic season the fans in Montreal had never seen anything like.
This was an absolute juggernaut that seemed destined for ultimate victory.
For a third year in a row, the Commissioner's Trophy seemed destined for Canada.
They had the best record in baseball, and then disaster struck.
This snake-bit franchise would never get the chance to fulfill that dream, for the game's labor woes once again reared their ugly head.
It was a ball game, I believe, in Pittsburgh. We flew back into Montreal. Strike date hit. They said, we're going on strike.
It was my belief that this had to be of short duration. Okay, that'll happen in a couple of weeks, and by the beginning of September, we'll all be back. It never once crossed my mind we wouldn't play the season out and that the postseason would be canceled.
Nobody thought about canceling the season. There had been no World Series canceled, going back a century. So why would that happen? The expectation, even among the slight pessimists, I guess, is it's going to be tough, but we'll probably find a way.
What happened next is nothing short of devastating. The season ended. Just like that, no more baseball was played.
All of a sudden, we had that abrupt stop. It left us all with an empty feeling.
You just sat there and was in the fog, thinking to yourself, this can't happen. This can't be the end of what we've just started. I just felt like, man, that was our chance to win a championship, and they took it away. And I'll always be somewhere in a dark place because of that.
In the immediate aftermath of the season's cancellation, no franchise or fan base was more apoplectic than the Expos. Never before had Montreal had a team this good. This was unequivocally their best shot at a World Series title in their 25-year history. And just like that, it was wiped out, destined to be forgotten.
Finally, they get the chance after 25 years of existence, and it gets wiped out. How would you deal with that as a fan? Whatever city you're in, that would have been devastating.
And I only wanted to win a World Series once in my life.
Best team in baseball resides in Montreal.
This is one of the best teams Montreal sports has ever seen. It cannot end like this.
They still have this great team. All they have to do is literally nothing, just status quo. Just make sure that this team takes the field next year. And they decide within the course of 3 days, basically, get rid of everybody. Get rid of Marquise Grissom, trade him. Get rid of Ken Hill. Get rid of John Wedlin.
Larry Walker, come on. You couldn't have had a better guy. And he had to walk because they couldn't afford to pay him.
Okay, we knew they couldn't keep everybody, but you could have kept 2 of these guys. This is truly one of the greatest teams in Major League history, and they were only going to get better. That's the sad part of this. We don't know how good they would have become. We were witnessing history in the making, not only because of what the team was doing on a nightly basis, but these were all players who hadn't yet reached their peak.
To make matters even worse, Expos fans had to endure watching the 4 that they lost play in the '95 postseason.
If you open up the TV and you take a look, you see all our players are all over the place. They're doing so well.
Grissom on the run. The team of the 90s has its world championship.
If you want to talk about the what-ifs in baseball history, Jeter and Posada and Mariano Rivera and Bernie Williams and those guys, maybe they're not legends because the Expos are kicking their butt every year in the World Series.
When that season ended, because of the strike, I sat down at home and I made notes listing the players, the record, and the date.
because I think it was the death knell of baseball in Montreal.
It was a death knell to the Montreal Expos.
Through all the wars and everything else, we had a World Series, but we didn't that year.
It affected the whole city and pretty much destroyed baseball in Montreal.
I don't know if it's a curse that was cast upon the Expos, but that's the only season in all of Major League history where the World Series, the playoffs were canceled. And this happened when the Expos had their best team ever.
I love the city of Montreal. Beautiful women, and you guys got fucked in 1994. And that would have been so great for baseball if the Montreal Expos even made it to a World Series, forget about winning the whole damn thing. And they had a young Pedro, young Randy Johnson. I mean, they were fucking stacked.
We at SRS would like to enter this team into the discussion for the single most heartbreaking season in sports history, with some absolutely devastating consequences that followed.
Financial issues had in fact been hindering the franchise for years. Multiple ownership groups and a failed attempt to move the team into a new downtown ballpark left the club's future in doubt.
This was a stadium that needed to be built downtown Montreal. That's where things were happening and still are.
No question, Stade Olympique was passé.
If we can get ourselves a new ballpark downtown, we'll bring baseball back to this city like it never was before.
A downtown stadium would have catapulted the franchise into among the best in Major League Baseball.
Every other city where they built it downtown, it reignited all the interest in the ball club. And do I think it would have been a success? Yes, I do.
You see that tree? Where the Canadian flag is? That's where I'll be sitting.
I remember I was in California when they called and said they were going to have this big rally.
You people are too good and deserve too much for this organization to leave and go elsewhere. There's too many memories.
There was no question that franchise needed a new stadium, but it just didn't materialize. And we tried and we tried.
Both the city and the provincial government refused to pay for any part of the new stadium.
Once that decision was made, everyone in the organization realized that it was purely a question of time before the team would be relocated.
Under fire from both the public and the consortium he headed, Brochu sold his shares and controlling interest to New York art dealer Jeffrey Loria.
The last years of the Expos, Mr. Loria was owner, and then Major League Baseball took over ownership. It was like going to the hospital to see somebody you loved suffering from terminal cancer.
Kind of preparing myself for the worst, you know. When you've got 5,000 people in the stands every night, it can't last forever.
They had great fans.
Many years we outdid the Yankees in attendance. Does anyone ever say that? No, they concentrate on a time we only had 2,000 fans in the stand.
The fan base was slapped around like a rag doll. They would say, oh, people aren't into baseball in Montreal anymore. Give me a break.
It was particularly painful to watch baseball games in an empty stadium, knowing full well how things could have been.
The league made the painful but much needed decision to move the team to Washington, D.C. The Expos were out of Montreal 10 years after their would-be magical season. Think about it, this team went from being in a position to dominate baseball for years to come to being completely relocated in 10 years. That's unbelievable.
There's big news in the world of baseball. I don't know if you know this, but the Montreal Expos are relocating to Washington, D.C.
The day began with the news that the Montreal Expos were moving to Washington. 31,000 fans showed up at the Olympic Stadium. 3/4 of them stayed behind when the game was done to give their team a real emotional outpouring.
It was hard, and you know, it was 31,000 people, and everybody was crying.
Joined by Katie Hines, and you know what, it's no secret that this is a tough day for a lot of people, and this is one. She has been at every game since the stadium opened. It is a tough day for you.
Quite frankly, it's the worst day of my life.
We can talk about this till we're blue in the face. One incident where this thing went wrong.
Most definitely, it's the 1994 strike. Maliciousness on the part of the owners to cancel a World Series. There wasn't a war. There was no war to prevent this from going on. So what? We play in November. Big deal. That's all it had to be done. It also was one of the greatest memories of my life because the 1994 team was going to win it.
Amazing. Couple members of that 94 team. Tim Scott to my right, Gil Heredia to my left.
It is sad to say that the baseball's leaving Montreal, but there's always going to be history here. That's one thing they can't take away from them.
Talk about that 94 season. I know the question is one of the best teams ever assembled. What could have been, but do you think you guys could have won the World Series?
Well, that's the question.
I mean, we had a good enough team to win it, but I mean, we will never know. And that's the thing that's haunting us, because after that strike year, that's when everything started spiraling, going downhill.
It was clear on this day in Montreal, there was an emotional toll being taken on the fans of the Montreal Expos.
It hasn't kind of hit me yet, you know. I guess I'm still a little bit in denial. It's heart-wrenching, it's gut-wrenching. It really means it's for real.
It's like a death in the family, but we got to live with it.
And that's the ball game. And 36 years of Major League Baseball history in the city of Montreal comes to an end.
Look, when I put myself back to October 3rd, 2004, my eyes begin to water. I get chills because that was a very sad day for me. I was at the final homestand at Shea Stadium. I was lucky enough to be living in New York, and as fate would have it, the last 3 games were in New York, and it was horrible. It was like going to a wake for 3 days, and I remember being there with my brother and being very sad about the fact that I would never see my team ever again. And I remember going down to the bottom of the stands, right above their dugout, for the 9th inning, the final out, and there were a few Expos fans still left, and we all just started chanting, "Let's go Expos."
Cheering to the last. 2 outs from the 9th pinch hitter, Andy Chavez, at the plate.
3-2 pitch, a ground ball towards the second baseman, the throw to first, and the Expos are history.
A month later, there would be a final farewell to Montreal and their fans. It would come from the most famous graduate of Expos University.
The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
Much love to Pedro Martinez, who, after winning a World Series with the Red Sox to end their 86-year drought in 2004, paid tribute to the Expos during his celebration.
I would like to share this with the people in Montreal that are not going to have a team anymore.
I'm sure the scene was played out in living rooms all over Montreal with just tears streaming down.
I saw myself as a champion in '94. I just could never celebrate it. So I wanted to share it with the people that I thought deserved.
My ring is with them too.
You go back to that moment with Pedro, and there's so much love in that moment. And if and when we do get a team back, I'll always think that was like the first initial spark.
I am terribly sad. I think it was a great lift for the city, for the province, and for the country when they came in.
We'd like to wish the city of Montreal and the Expos good luck and bon chance.
And it's been not the same kind of summer anymore, I've been told, since they're gone.
In a strange twist of fate in this hockey-centric city, the one place where the Expos' greats have been immortalized is right alongside the legends of Les Habitants.
Throughout the early years of the Washington Nationals, the team was mired in similar failure, until in 2019, 50 years after the birth of the Expos and 25 after the brutal end of 1994, the Nationals won the World Series. The same year they celebrated their Expos past, the franchise went on a miracle run and won it all. Baseball's just great like that.
And about the Expos, no, they came to Washington, D.C., my hometown, so I'm ambivalent. I mean, I'm so sorry you lost the Expos-ish.
More than anything else, I think it's sad for the fans of Montreal that there's no longer a baseball franchise.
The loss of their beloved Expos still resonates in Quebec.
Now that they're gone, the memorabilia for Expos is enormous. People still buy it, much like, Quebec Nordiques and Hartford Whalers. They still buy that stuff.
The Expos legacy has continued to remain enduring, with merchandise sales of the old logo still performing strong. According to retailer Lids, sales of Expos hats have continued to rise every year, with it climbing to the 5th most popular hat as of 2018.
Charles Bronfman, former owner of the team, said he is continually surprised to see Expos caps in New York City.
If you walk around Montreal, or any big Canadian city for that matter, you're sure to still see lots of Expos hats. They still manage to sell merchandise with that iconic logo very well.
Montreal Expos jersey,
During the early 2010s, Expos caps and jerseys became particularly popular among hip-hop and rap groups, and also became a staple of urban fashion in Canada and in the US.
And my understanding is that these hats do well in like hip-hop and other, like it's been picked up culturally, so it's kind of cool.
I just bought an Expos hat yesterday, actually.
Me too!
And I'm convinced it's one of the finest logos in the history of Major League Baseball.
The Expos, I love that logo. That's a 10. I love that.
A big fan, have a bunch of hats, 10 out of 10. I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10. Very cool logo.
10, 12. Obviously, I'd love to have baseball back in Montreal.
The Expos is a really elite name for a baseball team. It's just a solid name. It sounds cool. It's only 5 letters. It rolls off the tongue. And they did have a very nice logo and colors as well.
The first ball ever thrown out at Jarry Park. We have a 1938 Montreal Royals game-used uniform. These cleats were worn by Tommy Lasorda, a member of the Montreal Royals. Over here we have every team-signed ball from 1969 up until 2004. I have one from the Montreal Royals from 1946, signed by Jackie Robinson and the team. One of my favorite pieces is a piece of luggage that belonged to Gary Carter. It was like his traveling suitcase that is locked, but has something inside.
Tom Brady! In the 1995 MLB draft, the Montreal Expos drafted Tom Brady in the 18th round.
The last drafted Expos player has retired, Tom Brady.
It was Tom Brady? Tom Brady? I didn't know. Tom Brady was drafted by the Expos, for real?
Yes. Look it up.
The Expos thought that Brady had a lot of promise, with their general manager at the time saying that he thought Brady could have been one of the greatest catchers of all time.
With Tom Brady announcing his retirement, there are no more any active pro athletes who were drafted by the Montreal Expos. So rest in peace, Montreal Expos, forever. Tom Brady was holding the flag for you the last 23 years.
With a single online post, a football legend, some consider the greatest player of all time, threw Montreal baseball fans into a tizzy and doing a lot of what ifs.
Fanatics Collectibles is launching a captivating campaign where Tom Brady, instead of becoming an NFL legend, pursued a career in baseball with the Montreal Expos. Celebrating this what-if scenario, they're releasing a Topps 2023 Bowman Draft trading card.
Tom Brady, perhaps the greatest of all time on the gridiron, teaming up with card maker Bowman this year for a unique release that had the collectible market on fire of late.
Tom Brady's in a baseball uniform. I gotta see it.
We've been waiting for this product to come out for months now.
That's because the set includes a fictional Tom Brady card in a Montreal Expos uniform, the team that drafted him in baseball in 1995. Ahead of Tuesday's release, Topps promoted the Brady card, showcasing the rare autographed version with gold vinyl.
I caught a lot of Expos fastballs, but now, here's my pitch to you. Come on down to Brady Auto and catch some Major League savings.
You know why Tom Brady won 7 rings? It wasn't because of his game calling or his arm.
It was because of his hitting.
That's a Montreal brasserie in an alternate reality that was created by an American trading cards company.
The Expos also never left Montreal, and 3 of Brady's would-have-been teammates have a cameo: Larry Walker, Pedro Martinez, and Vladimir Guerrero.
That guy just never let us lose. Without him, they would have moved us out of Montreal.
Turns out to have been just a dream, but it has fanned the flames for those still dreaming of an Expos comeback here in the city.
This is going to be a fun one. We're looking for Tom Brady.
Bowman stuffed Brady baseball cards in some of its packs, including a one-of-a-kind unicorn version with Brady's signature.
It was pure elation and raw human emotion in the baseball card collectible world. A one-of-a-kind Tom Brady, yes, that Tom Brady card pulled from a pack by collectors in Eagan.
That card found in a set here in Minnesota could be worth more than $1 million.
And that was followed by pure pandemonium. Tuesday night here at Triple Diamond, history on their live stream.
Tom Brady! Tom Brady Superfractor on release day! Oh my God! No way! Oh my God!
Davis's team pulled the Brady autograph that he figures is a card that may already be worth over $1 million. His team also found an unautographed version that could potentially sell for $3,000 to $5,000.
Holy!
The one card that everybody wants from the set, and it's in Eagan, Minnesota, in my hands. I couldn't believe it.
Check it out. I'm Toma Kazoka of the Montreal Expos.
More than a decade after their departure, they are not forgotten. Even a few exhibition games can still trigger a familiar passion.
Bonsoir, Maria!
They filled the joint. They put 97,000 people in the stadium for 2 games. 97,000 people. The next season in 2015, another 97,000 people showed up. We were singing Expo songs and we were singing Valderi Valdera, and we were crying, grown men. We were crying over the outpouring of emotion.
I went there with my son, who at the time was 2, and it was honestly like an out-of-body experience because the Big O's smelled the same, it looked the same, they were wearing the white jerseys, and I felt like I'd just seen someone who I thought was dead. And that's when I started to have hope and believe, given how big the crowds were, that Montreal would have a team again.
The fact that people got in there, I would say, it's a small part of the equation. 3 years ago, I say, well, there's no way a team is coming back. Now I say, there's a little something, maybe.
I heard somebody say after the exhibition games, that's nice, but it's 30 years too late because they never came to Montreal. Explain in brief the real history of the Expos and attendance, because people don't believe it now when you say how good they were at drawing fans, even in that dump.
They certainly were. If you look at the early 80s, especially 82 and 83, the Montreal Expos outdrew the New York Yankees. 2 million plus, which in those days was a big deal, and it was a party, man. This was a party city. People were into the Montreal Canadiens. That crowd navigates over to the Expos. Women in fur coats, men in 3-piece suits. It was a great place to be. They come to the 90s, that 94 club, best team in baseball. Guess what? All those people show up again. So that does exist. There is that spirit in there, but it's the kind of thing, it was like an abusive relationship. You go and you're just beaten down by life, and any sane person is going to get out of an abusive relationship eventually. Get me a good relationship, people will come back.
The truth is, they needed to leave. The brand was tarnished, the market was poisoned, and nobody was talking about baseball. When the Expos left, Quebec was home to just one sports channel. Today, it has 4, all hungry for content. A weak dollar, no TV money, lack of political leadership, and baseball's labor wars went wrong at the same time. Today, those obstacles have been removed, with one major exception. We need a real Gary Carter Stadium, downtown with 35,000 seats. That's the tribute the kid truly deserves.
Gary be smiling down in heaven about it. He'd love to have a team back there.
This is my friend John Paul Morosi of Fox Sports talking to my friend Stu Sternberg last June. Morosi, do you think Major League Baseball could work again in Montreal? Sternberg, yes, I know it can. Incredible place for baseball. That doesn't mean my baseball team, but a baseball team. Morosi, do you think there will come a day when Montreal has a team again? Sternberg, in the next 5 years, no. In the next 20, yes. Morosi, an expansion franchise or one that moves there? Sternberg, I think a franchise that moves there. I know nothing, there's no discussions. Montreal? Montreal? Downtown ballpark, a good franchise, American League East games against Boston, New York, and Toronto? And Montreal might be a baseball gold mine. But Stu Sternberg says he ain't moving there.
Jeff Passan of ESPN is reporting that the Tampa Bay Rays have received baseball's permission to explore a plan wherein Tampa would host early season games and Montreal would host the rest of the schedule. A split season that could start in 2023. Wilbon, can I interest you in this idea?
No. Just take so it's 80 and 80. You just take
it's not even going to be 80.
It'd be 20 and 60 or something like that.
Yeah.
We'll take the other 20 and just add them on and put the team in Montreal. No team, Florida deserves no Major League Baseball. This is junk. Get this out of here.
There are 2 things that are clear about this proposal. Baseball would like to repatriate to Montreal.
They go to Montreal.
Obviously.
The purpose of the split season would be to preserve baseball in Tampa, but improve the economics of the club overall by playing some of their games in Montreal.
Okay. You have the commissioner of Major League Baseball speaking on this today, Stephen Brent, joining us in studio. What is happening right now? How do you read this?
I think how I read this is the beginning of baseball coming back to Montreal.
The team's leadership is trying to convince fans that sharing the Rays with Montreal might be the only way to keep baseball here at all.
We are at or near the bottom in every economic category in Major League Baseball. This is a reality, and we can all confront it together.
Many details haven't been revealed yet on how the split would even work, including what the team would be called and where the money would come from to build new stadiums in both cities.
I'm not a fan. Not a fan of the Montreal idea.
The Rays are locked in a lease to play in Florida until the end of the 2027 season. In Montreal, there's some skepticism about sharing a team.
Our aspirations are really for something a lot more.
If you're Montreal, why would you want to build this state-of-the-art stadium and have a team, somebody else's team, come up and play 41 games? I mean, if Montreal gets a team back, It should be the Expos. It should be with that logo and those awesome pinwheel uniforms. And it should be an expansion team, kind of Expos 2.0.
One thing I don't want to advocate for is relocation, because I used to hate when people would say, oh, you know, who cares about baseball in Montreal? No one will care if the Expos leave. I'm here to tell you that wasn't the case, and I don't think that's the case in Tampa. And I see people saying that about Rays fans as well. I know there's kids there who will be devastated if the Rays leave. And so this idea that, you know, we're taking their team, I prefer expansion. But if they're going to offer this to us, I'll take it. Now, I'll also say, I think it's very far-fetched.
Crazy to think Montreal, Toronto, American League East, but it could happen.
2028?
And this is the start of it.
In a rather shocking turn of events, Major League Baseball killed off the Tampa Bay Rays' split season plan with Montreal. Now, he has 6 years, whether it be in Tampa or a different city, to have a brand new stadium built for opening day. Built, completed, and ready to go for opening day in 2028. There's some crazy stuff in the baseball world going on.
All right, we're chatting with Cody Decker.
What do you make of the Rays potentially getting a new stadium?
I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. The problem is that it's in St. Pete, and they're going to build another stadium in St. Pete. No one goes to St. Pete. No one lives in St. Pete. It is the dumbest thing I've ever seen proposed in my life. Send them to Montreal.
Ooh, you think that would work in Montreal? That. We'd support that. I know people in Montreal would.
I do know Major League Baseball is very, very, very keen to getting back into Montreal, though. So whether it's going to be an expansion team or a team moving there, but nothing can really happen for Major League Baseball expansion until the Rays and the A's situation was figured out. Now the A's are almost officially done for Vegas. Now if we get some clarity on the Rays, we now know whether or not we're going to be expanding 1 or 2 teams, and I think Montreal is on the short list of those cities.
Vegas and Montreal could be added to the circuit. Watch yourself. 2 of the Hall of Fame party cities. Montreal in the summer is a beast of a town.
It does well.
It is so much fun.
I'm glad you say that, because I've been told this for years. I've never been to Montreal. All I ever get are the greatest Montreal stories. Dude, it's one of the greatest cities just in the world. Yeah. And freely admit, it's definitely a place where a young ball player who is single can easily get into some trouble.
In North America, you can't find anything like it. There's flair to it. It's got a European vibe. It's French-Canadian. It's wild. We got to get back to Montreal. We got to get the Expos back to Montreal.
Exactly.
I saw the fun. My eyes lit up like a Christmas tree when I first saw the nightlife part.
Well, that's everybody.
Yeah.
I can remember many occasions. They say, hey, Rook, come on. I didn't drink. He said, well, get a glass of milk.
Larry Walker, sometimes he'll become the bartender and he will start giving everybody that passed by on the streets drinks. Drinks are on me. And those moments were like so much fun. I didn't want to let go of those summers in Montreal.
You guys came out with all these polls. They're anonymous from Major League Baseball players. Expansion. Where the heck is Orlando on this list? I get it, Nashville, Orlando, that'd be a great 1-2 punch.
This was a player poll, and I found it really interesting that Nashville did so well. I was a little surprised to see Montreal. I believe that might have to do with certain players' preferences for gentlemen's clubs in that particular city.
I've never been, so I don't know. Can you tell me? I never went there. I don't know, Ken.
Stories are legend, AJ. That's all I have to say about it.
Did you ever go to Jarry Park?
I didn't, not Olbermann.
See, I did. And it was as exceptional experience as I've ever seen in baseball. It was like big league, minor league baseball. The atmosphere was literally festive. And it seems to me that if you got something big scale that looked like Jarry Park, call it Jarry Park, what the hell?
It is the #1 party city. This is the place to be, and it's a downtown culture. If you got something built there.
And if it's in the American League East against Boston, New York, Toronto.
Amazing.
Built-in rivalries.
You're getting me excited.
I know. I know a couple of people in baseball go, why aren't we there? It sounds like a really good idea.
Things are stirring. They're stirring big time.
Major League Baseball is expanding. I don't know when it's happening, and I don't know where they're going to go. But if Commissioner Rob Manfred gets his way, a 32-team MLB could very well become a reality.
I do think 32 teams would help us. It opens up a whole host of things. You get to 4-team divisions, which work better in the schedule. You could geographically realign. You could have a little different playoff format, a lot more flexibility.
The fans are on board, and it's not hard to see why. Adding a new team is exciting. It means opening up a brand new market and fan base, or in some cases, reopening them.
Which cities would be the best candidates for MLB expansion?
Well, Nashville sounds like the logical choice, but I'm going to give you 2 cities, neither of them in the United States.
Montreal, many moons ago when I was covering the Mets, we used to go up there. That is a great city. I get it. The stadium they play in has a lot of tradition, Olympic Stadium, but that thing needs to go. But the fans never wanted the team to go.
I'm leaning toward in your direction. And then there are no bad choices here. Montreal, Vancouver, Nashville, Charlotte, Portland, San Antonio, Mexico City, San Juan. No bad choices.
With over 4 million residents, it's the most populous of all these expansion candidates, almost double Vancouver's size.
The city has remained attractive due to its large extended population center of 4.2 million people and its rich baseball history.
It's the 8th largest city in North America, and it's already home to the Canadiens, the Alouettes, and CF Montreal, and is also home to the Canadian Grand Prix, which is the largest Grand Prix in North America. So there's precedent for sports here. Get on it. Baseball, go back to Montreal. If you're trying to get back in Canada, get another team up here, it's got to be Montreal #1.
Baseball almost always returns to a market it left. The only single market to not have its franchise replaced is, of course, Montreal.
Lest we forget that the Washington Senators used to play in Washington. They had 3 kicks at the can. And so now they get a chance to take away our team? No, we get another chance, just like many other teams have had another chance.
The biggest thing working against the Canadian city is just that. It's a Canadian city. It doesn't have the political clout to threaten and cajole Major League Baseball into giving it another team.
Some news came in here via email. This is a news alert. Baseball is set to return to the province of Quebec as the Expos are going to resume as one of baseball's professional franchises. Judy, I'll begin with you. Your reaction?
I think it's wonderful. Got a chance to visit the city a couple of times. The people there love the game. It's a beautiful city.
Guys.
This April Fool.
Yankees are my team now until the Expos get a team back.
I say Montreal needs a team back. Do you agree?
It's a great town to go out at night. And for you guys to go up, like we come down here from Canada, have a good time in New York. You guys need a place to go to have a good time away from here. And Montreal is a great city to party in.
Montreal simply deserves its baseball team back. And we'd finally get back maybe the best jerseys in Major League Baseball, the Expos. Hats and jerseys were absolutely epic, and I think Montreal does deserve its baseball team back.
In an era of reboots and revivals, bringing the Expos back might be a logical move for Major League Baseball. But will they actually go through with it?
What do you think their chances of coming back here are?
I have some insight, so I better not say, but I'm like 100% positive it's going to happen.
There's strong support for the return of baseball to Montreal, that a stadium maybe in the size of around 35,000 would be appropriate, and location to be determined.
Recently, there's been a proposed plan to build a brand new stadium near the Peel Basin area of Montreal. The concept was formulated by an investment group headed by Stephen Bronfman, the son of the Expos' former owner Charles Bronfman, and the former president of the Montreal Canadiens, Pierre Boivin.
During these talks, there was also mention of Montreal going after an NBA franchise, which could play in the already existing Bell Center, home of the Montreal Canadiens.
NBA in talks with group to establish expansion team in Montreal. So Adam Silver, he broached the subject in a televised interview during Monday night's game between the Celtics and the Knicks.
Yeah, there are more fertile grounds north of the border. I know there's interest from Montreal. We've heard from them.
That's the first thought that comes to mind.
Yeah, there's still ongoing interest in Vancouver. So one day, there will be more opportunity there over time.
Montreal is one of the most populous cities in North America. I'm not sure how many people know that. Silver's thinking about you, Montreal.
I did see that Montreal is further north than Toronto.
We the north.
OUI the north? Oh, that's pretty good, actually.
That is good.
Once we get this team back, which we will get this team back, we get this nice, beautiful 35,000 seat stadium. There's gonna be a couple statues out front. One of them is gonna be his, and the other is gonna be Gary Carter. I guarantee you that.
Do you think in our lifetime we will see baseball return to Montreal? What about this Tampa?
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Really?
A downtown outdoor stadium in the summertime in Montreal. You ready to move back, buddy?
I have told my wife, who is also from Montreal, the moment this happens, we're packing up. It's been a good 20 years here, but I'm going home. Like, I would love to be a beat writer for that team. That team meant so much to me.
Baseball may come back to our city one day. It may not. What is certain is that the Expos and their colorful history remain in the hearts of the people of Montreal.
It's not nostalgia. It's not just memories. It's DNA. It's truly part of us.
It's been nearly 20 years already.
The team, the players, the memories are still alive and always will be. You just have to remember to look to find them.
Hello, everybody. Starting for the Expos in left field, Casey Candell. He's no good. In right field is Mitch Webster. He's no good. At first is Andre. How would you folks at home say that name? Andre Galarraga. Tim Wallach's at third. Jeff Reed is catching. Vance Law is overrated. He's at second base. Tom Foley shouldn't even be playing. He's at shortstop. Herman Winningham. What, you're going to be afraid of a guy named Herman Winningham? We'll just throw it right down the plate when he's up. And Floyd Youmans will be pitching.
That's pretty
That's
good.
the easy part. They're no good. Shouldn't be a problem. And then for the Cubs, the almighty Chico Walker in left field. Come on, let's hear it for him. Come on, everybody up. Chico Walker, come on. Ryan Sandberg, come on, let's hear it for him. Andre Dawson, come on, I know he was an Expo, but he's okay now. Come on.